Good morning, everyone. This is Chelsea with Illinois WorkNet. We're going to get started, but before we do that, can you go ahead and let me know if you can hear me? You can go ahead and type in the chat pod, or there is a little person with their hand raised at the top. You can go ahead and select that, just so I know that the audio is working. Okay, great. So I want to cover a couple of housekeeping items before I turn it over to the CEO to get started. If you have not called into the phone, you can go ahead and type everything in the chat pod. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and introduce yourself and talk amongst yourselves. We've also muted everyone that has called in to cut back on some background noise. But at the end, I believe they are going to do a Q&A session, and then we will unmute everyone. And then the last thing I wanted to cover is down in the bottom left-hand corner, there is something called a file share pod. It's right below the chat. And all of the meeting materials, including the PowerPoint, the RFA, and the RFA clarification are in there, and you can go ahead and download them. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mike and the rest of the team there in Springfield.
All about the webinar, but I see we have a robust sign-up sheet today, so that's good. We have 2 hours allotted. I don't think it will take nearly that long, but we did want to allow time for questions, as I'm sure everyone will have some questions in their mind. Hopefully we'll address as many of those as possible in the presentation itself, and we can use the time at the end to clarify anything that we.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there we go. Boom, okay. All right, the rationale for clarification. So basically, why are we doing this? I mean it when I say this wasn't our idea, but this is what we had to do, and here's why. Remember this from the bidders conferences we did back in December, where we spoke ad nauseum about the evaluation being the thing. Well, despite conversations in the fall with the national evaluator about how we were going to have a regional approach and everyone had the latitude to kind of do their own thing within the confines of the overall system, at some point enough people started looking at it at the national level and got concerned. And specifically here were their concerns. Basically, they felt like letting everybody do their own thing would allow for too much variety, which then, in order to provide a meaningful evaluation, would require us to have a treatment and control group in each region, which, yeah, I don't think anyone wanted to go down that path. So just with the available funding that we have and what we're trying to get done, that was going to be a path we didn't want to go down. So basically, in order to get a meaningful evaluation, we worked with them and had a significant amount of back and forth on how could we keep the basic overall structure of what we were doing and with as minimal disruption to the game plan that we've already talked about, and more importantly, what you all have all talked about with your regional partners and kind of set the table for them. What can we do going forward that keeps as much of that as possible, but still would give the national evaluator enough standardization that they felt like it would be a statistically meaningful evaluation. So, and we argued the point, that no, this is how we wanted to do it, and we think this will be fine, but they did not buy our argument, and this is what we were able to negotiate, that it was as close to what we started with as we were going to get. So what did we keep out of the original plan? We're keeping the acceleration of time to earnings as the overall goal. That still is the thing that we're trying to demonstrate that we can pull off. We want to keep the overall regional partnership approach that keeps manufacturers involved both at the state and the regional level. And we talked quite a bit about the pull model back in the bidders conferences, where we're responding to the employer's demands. They let us know what their needs are, and then we work to fill those job openings with skilled workers, kind of on a just-in-time process. So, we're running cohorts of people through training to try to fill those spots, as soon as they let us know that they need them. We also want to keep the flexibility, and we're able to keep the flexibility to allow participants to progress, at their own speed, kind of based on what skill levels and talent they bring to the table and the kind of training that they're taking. And we're going to go into that quite a bit in this piece. The one big thing we did have to forego was letting everybody do their own thing and kind of figure out their own way to innovate to make that happen. So that is what it is. So again, in the clarification, the new deadline is March 29th, 5 p.m. Send them in to me. That shouldn't be news to anyone. Okay. So what are we going to do to make this happen, working together, between the state partners and the regional partners and the employers? Okay. So, in order to accelerate the time to earnings, we want to allow that flexibility on the timing and the service delivery. Open exit is a key part of that, and we're going to talk about that probably every other slide going through. So I'll just warn you now, you're going to hear the term open exit quite a bit. So brace yourselves. The way that we felt that we had to do that in order, because of the nature of the timeliness, the speed at which this was laid on, and the way the education community works with curricula development and getting everybody on speed, everybody up to speed and knowing what to do and how to do it, how to deliver it. We're approaching this as a non-credit innovation initiative. So that gives the colleges some flexibility to do things a little differently for this treatment group, for the people that are part of this initiative. This is not asking any college or provider to change what they're doing for their regular customers, but is asking them to and challenging them to be creative and think outside the box on how we could provide services to folks as we go through. Here in Springfield, I have Jennifer Foster and Levon Nelson from the College Board here. So if there are any community colleges on board this morning and you have any questions about how that process might work internally, feel free to bring those up and we'll address those later. And ladies, if you have anything that you would like to add to the conversation at this point, feel free to jump in if you think something needs clarified. So again, we don't want to be tied to the semester calendar. Semester calendars kind of are built for traditional students who don't mind dead time. Thinking of the folks that like the spring break, like the holiday break, and don't mind taking all semester long to do the classes and get through in 2 years or 4 years, which is fine. That's the track they're on. But dislocated workers need to get back to work right away. They have families to feed, right? So we want to do what we can to eliminate that dead time and start training folks as soon as we get the word from the employers that the need is there. We round up the folks that fit the bill, get them trained as quickly as possible, and then get ready for the next cohort. One possible model might be every 30 days. You've got a cohort planned based on what your employers are going to need. So if somebody walks in, a couple days after the cohort started, they don't have to wait till the next semester. They just have to wait 2 or 3, maybe 4 weeks before the next training module would start. So the idea is to get into a flow and get that pipeline going so that we are crunching those people through that pipeline once we're up and going practically on a continuous basis, based on what the demand is. Now, having said that, we don't want to just start cranking cohorts up if the jobs aren't there. The key is work with the employers to understand what the need is and train the right number of people to fill the need. And again, that open exit concept we're going to talk a lot about. As soon as a person can demonstrate competency, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more coming up as well, we want them to be able to move on. Especially when they are in the bridge aspects or bridge phase of training. Say a bridge program might take, I'll just throw out a number, 2 months. Okay? If somebody comes in with a relatively high skill level in reading and math, or has a high school diploma, but you can't quite pass the 9th grade math test. But with maybe a week's worth of work, they can get up to speed. I don't know if I could go in and pass that test right now. But, practice up a little bit, they might be able to get there within a week or less. There's no need to make that person sit through a 2 or 3 month training if that's all they needed and they were able to meet the need and demonstrate their competency and the skill set they need in just a few days. So the idea is that as soon as they can demonstrate competency in the skill, move them on so they can start moving up the ladder. Okay. We will be working with the Manufacturing Learning Exchange and you all to develop competency checklists, and so that we can screen people when they come in to make sure that what they say they have, they really have, especially when it comes to skills. Someone may have been in a job for quite some time and tell you when they come in, yeah, I've been a machinist for 30 years, and so, hey, they've got all the skills. But depending on what they were doing, they may or may not have all the competencies they need to enter a job right now with a different employer. So we need our manufacturing employers and experts and our educators at the table to help screen those folks out on the front side to say, okay, do you really have what you think you have? You may not be what you think you are, essentially. So think of it as kicking the tires, just to make sure that when we send them to training, they're ready for it, and when we send them to an employer, more importantly, they're ready for that. And it doesn't mean that they wouldn't be allowed in the program. We just need to say, well, okay, if you think you're a machinist, you may have to start at a level that other than what you were expecting, because there's all this stuff that's involved in it that maybe you weren't aware of based on what your work experience was. Okay. Okay, so every person gets their own plan. We're going to look at what education they bring to the table, what their technical manufacturing skills are, and what their workplace skill assessments are. Do they show up on time? Do they play well in the sandbox at work? What's their work history? Not to say that would keep someone from getting in. That's just something that we would need to address in the training as they come in. We want to use assessment tools that are developed by the state partners in concert with the Manufacturing Learning Exchange. I mean, they are a state partner. But each region has some flexibility. You can use something that is more stringent if you like, a little more, has higher criteria if you like. As long as you meet the state standards or above, you're fine. We're not going to tell you you have to use a particular tool, but whatever tool you use does have to meet the state standard or exceed those. Also, as you are building that personalized plan, you've got to look at the available jobs in the region and then consider that person's skill gap for that gamut of jobs that are out there. And then you also have to consider what their personal situation is. Some folks might need to get to work in a month, and that's the realistic limit of where they can go. Other folks may have a different situation. They may have a second income in the household. They might be able to go 3 or 4 months before they have to get back to work. They also, depending on what their income level was beforehand, you may have to look at that. So again, you just have to look at what they bring to the table, what their situation gives you, and then what the available jobs are in the region, and kind of put all those chemicals in the vat and stir it up and come up with a game plan for them that is realistic, that gets them into employment as soon as we can based on their needs. And again, we'll give you templates and checklists on those competencies, both for the pre-screening process and also to use to verify, are they ready when they go into employment? Then also to verify, did they complete the plan? And did we get done for them what the plan said we were going to get done? And then also along with that, each person should get extensive career coaching, supportive services, and especially work-based learning opportunities throughout this. So think job shadowing, think internship, beyond OJT. Any opportunity we have to get someone into a real live workplace is a positive. Okay? Whether it's just job shadowing somebody or it's an actual internship, whether paid or unpaid, but anytime we can get them at an employer an employer gets a chance to see them and get to know them, and that helps that person get a job later. So, but even if they don't get a job with that employer, they still get the value of the experience of having seen how the workforce operates, or how the workplace operates. Okay, we just spoke to this first point again, so no need to hit that again. One thing that everybody will get is the MSSC Level 1 training. That's an introduction to manufacturing and safety. It's an applied reading module. It's very easy to implement, and it's done on the MSSC standards. We'll talk a little bit more about that later as to why everyone's getting that, but for this point, we'll move on. If someone coming into the program has math below 9th grade or 10th grade reading, then we would expect them to take additional bridge coursework along with some contextualized manufacturing learning until they can demonstrate competency. And then once they're up to speed, like we spoke about with the open exit, we move them on. Now here's the deviation from the clarification one I want to make sure everyone is clear on. The clarification letter says that eligibility includes a high school diploma or equivalency. Okay. When working with our community college partners, we want to make sure that folks without that can take advantage of it. And so you can let folks in without that, but as part of their enrollment, we want them to start work on their GED. Okay. So, and there are online tests that can make that happen. So that will be part of their plan. Their personal plan will include getting a GED while they're in training. Okay. Yes, Levon has a thought.
Yeah. Can we clarify that below 9th grade, because I can't see the whole thing.
That's that exit.
Yeah, that's that.
What we want them to exit with.
Oh, yes,
but
sorry.
Where's the 6th?
Right.
Remind them of the...
Yeah, the requirements for entry are 6th grade reading and math level for entry.
Right.
But we want them up to 9th and 10th upon exiting the bridge program. So what I was saying, if they come in below 9th or 10th, they're going to go to bridge training.
But only below, down to the 6th grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea is that...
I got a little nervous.
Yeah, no, if someone comes in, at a 2nd or 3rd grade reading and math level, that's too big a gap, to do it under WIF. Okay, not too big a gap for that person. I mean, if they have the time to invest, eventually we could get them there if they were willing to do the work. Okay, that's not the issue. But for WIF, for the time frame we have, people need to start at a 6th grade level at least in order to go into the bridge to get them up to speed to where they need to be for our program. Thank you, Levon. But again, if they don't have a diploma or GED, they can work on that while they're in training and make that happen. However, with the open exit, we don't want the GED to be the thing that holds them back. If they can show the competencies in reading and math and manufacturing, we want them to go ahead and move on into advanced training, in the technical training or an OJT opportunity. They can continue to work on the GED while they're in training or even after they get a job. Okay. But we want to make sure that you understand working on the GED is great, and we want that to happen. But don't let passing the GED test hold them back from moving on. Yes, Jennifer.
As a part of the process, hopefully as a part of their being a part of the bridge program, that they are developing those basic skills that will be some of the same skills that they will acquire if they were enrolled in an actual GED program. And if there's a need for a supplemental class or an additional class, they can enroll in the adult education program to get those needed support activities.
Great. Thank you. And I do want to go back to one slide to hit something that I may have glossed over earlier, and that's on the non-credit aspect of the training. Dot point 2 is key there as well. If you can find a way to do this and offer credit, by all means, we'd love to take a look at that and help you make that happen. It's certainly not a requirement. We understand the nature of how the academic community works, so it's not a requirement. But if by some chance you guys are thinking innovatively and that your region have figured out a way to do it and give the person college credit at the same time, so much the better. We'd love to see that. We will try to do everything we can to help you make that happen.
But don't lose time trying to focus on that, given the time worth it
Right.
overall.
Right, yeah, but again, we do want to get people into training quickly here, so if you can, maybe work on that going through the process, that's fine also. But don't wait to have that done before you start enrolling people.
Can I clarify something for those of you when we're talking about credit and non-credit? With non-credit, that does include 1.6 vocational skills. So for those of you at the community college level, when we say non-credit, it could be that. The credit would be the transfer, but keep in mind when we're talking non-credit, we are also talking the 1.6. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And again, we want to try to incorporate work-centered training into our credentials, as we've talked about already. That's that work experience, job shadowing, internships, and OJT. The idea is that it shouldn't just be classroom training. We want them to get some hands-on experience as well. And the employers, are at the table, both at the state level and the regional level. If for some reason at the regional level you're having difficulty getting the number or types of employers that you would like to see, please let us know that, and we can work with the Manufacturing Learning Exchange to help address that. I mean, you should be doing that already, but also I need to know that as well if you're having problems. So don't be shy about giving me a call or email and letting me know, hey, we're running, we got a few, but we'd like to have more, or we know there are some out there that are not at the table yet, and we're not getting calls returned or whatever. Let me know, and we will do everything we can to help you find a way around that.
Also, I sit on the Manufacturing Learning Exchange, so if any of the community colleges have issues or anything, feel free. I mean, of course, you can always, Mike is the DCO person, but you could give me a call, and then I would be glad to also intervene at the Learning Exchange.
Super.
So.
Thank you. Okay. Also, the competencies that we're going to speak to and have everyone try to achieve are based on national standards, the NIM standards and AWS standards. So the idea is that our participants will earn stackable credentials that are transferable, will go anywhere, and an employer that is involved in manufacturing will say, oh, your NIMS, you have a NIMS credential, that's good. We know what that means, and we know that you have the skill set we need based on having that credential. So we're trying to build that into the program so that folks can go to any employer in Illinois or across the nation and take those skills. Okay. So let's break down the workflow. How is this going to work? This is still a little bit of a high-level look at it, but we wanted to kind of describe the process for you, how we see it working, and how we explain it to Department of Labor and the National Evaluator. So don't worry about this being hard to see. If it is, we're going to go through each box one by one, but I just kind of want to see the overall look here. The blue box at the top is the pre-screening. Random assignment is the red box, and then everything that flows downward from that happens to the treatment group. The one thing that we're not going to talk about box by box, at least visually, is the blue arrow that comes off the left side of that first yellow box. That's the concept that once people have completed that phase one of the bridge program, that includes the MSSC module and the assessment of them, they can go straight to technical training if they don't need remedial education, for lack of a better term. Yes?
No, I was going to, once you finish, I had it.
Okay. But for folks that need to get up to that 9th, 10th grade level on reading and math, or need other workplace skills that a bridge program can provide, they go down to that second yellow box, and then from that into technical training. Okay. Yes, Alon.
I wanted to go back to that first box where...
Well, we're going to talk about that in detail as we go forward.
Okay. I understand, but
Okay.
just that, don't forget to include the community college business and industry centers in your discussions, even though they may not have a direct role. They have contacts in the community with manufacturers that are excellent, and that's the primary group that the business and industry centers work with. So I just didn't want to leave them out.
Right, right.
They're not listed anywhere, but they could be great contacts and liaisons for you.
Okay, super. Thank you. Okay, so let's look at the blue box in a little more detail. Here we're determining eligibility and aptitude for the WIF program. So basically, we need a joint committee composed of WIA to handle the WIA eligibility piece. That's key. If they're not WIA eligible, that short circuits everything else. So that's the key piece right there. But WIA eligibility is not the only thing that we're looking at. So we also need the folks from the adult ed community, from the CTE community, and the manufacturing employers there at the table, looking at all these people together. And one way it could work is that you have some volunteers from each community there that can give a couple hours every week or so, or every other week, depending on the demand, to go through the files. But the idea is that all those entities at the regional level are working together at the table together, looking at each person one by one to determine, is this person a good fit for the WIF initiative. Okay. And what that committee should look at is contained within that blue box. We want to see, are they eligible? Do they have reading and math at 6th grade or higher? And what is that reading level? What are their work experience skills? What are their technical skills? Do they have a manufacturing background already? But again, like I spoke to earlier, we need to verify what that manufacturing background is before we let them in. So because we got to know where they're at least before we determine what their plan is. And then the workplace skills. Do they play well in the sandbox? Do they show up on time? What do they need any help with that? And then finally, a drug screening. If they pass all the other things and still are a viable candidate, then we test everybody for drug usage. If they pass that test, then they can go into the randomization process. If they fail that drug screening, they're not going to make it to an employer at that point anyway. So you can refer those folks to treatment programs, or refer them to the other programs for assistance in getting employment. So that drug screening, is the final test. The WIF program, the WIF grant will pay for the drug screening. But again, that's the final step, and that's a pass-fail, for moving on. And again, just to make sure, the high school diploma is not required for entry. Like it said in the paper, and we'll issue a clarification or an update on that at some point. Just want to make sure everyone knows that right now. Okay, no change on the random assignment. The statewide evaluator will help us develop a process on how everyone will do that. Everyone will have to do that the same way, and they will provide technical assistance to everybody on how we're going to make that happen. We may do a giant meeting, a webinar. There are a lot of ways that we can do that technical assistance. So we'll be in communication with you all about that when the time gets close. But I just want to let you know, you won't be out there on your own trying to figure that out. We will help everybody work through that piece of it together, so everybody understands how to do it and has the opportunity to ask questions and help us all kick the tires on the process. Okay, so the next step, our first yellow box is bless you. Is our expanded bridge to training. Everybody in the treatment group will get this, and this was part of the standardization of effort that DOL said, yeah, if you do that, we can live with that, and the national evaluator said we can live with that. So everybody will get this piece as part of the process. Okay. Again, we want to look at verifying their skills in math, reading, and their manufacturing technical skills. Figure out that urgency to learn. What we're doing here is that personalized plan we talked about, taking all those factors into consideration. And then we want to give everybody that first MSSC program, that Intro to Manufacturing and Safety. That's an applied reading coursework. It's relatively simple, and everybody should have that coming in. At that point, if folks have demonstrated competencies that are high enough to go into technical training, once they complete that MSSC coursework and then they have a plan that is put together for them, they can move on to technical training right away. Don't hold them up. As soon as they demonstrate competency, push those folks out and get those folks into training. Okay. For the folks that don't go into technical training that need additional bridge programmatic efforts of education and training, we'll give them those folks that at this point. We'll get their reading and math skills up to speed, and if they don't have a high school diploma or GED, we'll get them started on that at this point. Also included, through the bridge program concept is contextualized manufacturing learning. Reading kind of geared toward manufacturing, math geared toward manufacturing, and then also any transitional services they might need to move on to the next level. And then, everybody needs to get that piece. But also, there are four modules in the MSSC program. If you have the capacity and would like to do it, you can have those folks take level 2 of MSSC, which is quality and measures, or you could have them complete the National Career Readiness Certificate as part of this level. You could have them do, none, both, or either one. It just depends on your capacity and your need at the level, and folks' willingness and eagerness to take that on. But by all means, if you want to build that into your program, feel free. And again, at that level, we still need involvement from the CTE, adult ed, and the employers as we develop their plan and kick the tires on them. Everybody on that initial screening committee needs to stay involved, helping the person through the process, so that we make sure everything, basically so that we're throwing the kitchen sink at those folks and make sure they get every advantage possible through the WIF initiative. Okay, on the next slide, the technical skill trainings. Again, we want this to be a pull model, frequent classes, based on the regional demand. ITAs are not particularly well suited for that kind of model. The idea is, and basically they're not well suited because timing can be an issue, and because they're unpredictable, and also ITAs are onesie-twosie sorts of things usually. The idea is we want to build up enough folks where we can run a cohort through. So you've got to work with your employers on that to figure out what the training is. Maybe folks can all go through the same cohort together on the basics, and then split off to more specialized training if everybody, if there are different needs, or everybody has aptitude or desires to go into something different, okay? But there ought to be a way that everybody gets kind of the same basic, manufacturing 101 kind of thing on the outset, and then specializes later on down the road. But the idea is that we don't want folks, waiting for the next semester to start training. We've got to find a way to keep the process rolling, early and often, so that people get back into the workforce as quickly as possible. And again, we've already spoke to the concept of job shadowing and work experience, so we just want to make sure people build that in as much as possible. Okay. And then on permanent employment, once they get through that technical training, we want to get them out into that job. So we, again, work with the employers to know about current and upcoming job postings. And this is the key. Don't send folks to interview that aren't a fit, aren't a reasonably good fit for that job. Or at the very least, you've got to tell the employer, well, this person is kind of on the edge, we're not sure, and let them tell you, okay, yeah, that person is close enough, we'll take a look at them. But what we don't want to do is send folks to employers that are so far off the mark that they lose confidence in the folks that are coming to them. Now, hopefully, because they've been in the process all along, that should never happen anyway. But for some reason, there will be employers, I expect, that would be sent somebody that has come through the program that has not been involved, that you just want to make sure that you're sending people that are good fits. And of course, you give them that final coaching on interview skills. If they had that at the bridge level, they probably need a brush up at that point. And then make sure that their portfolio is complete, so when they go to the interview, they can speak to, I have these credentials, and I'm ready to go to work on what you have, and here's the paperwork to prove it. Okay. And there's kind of putting all the pieces back together again to see how the workflow goes.
Hey, Mike, this is Chelsea.
Yes.
You had some questions come in on the chat during that, so I don't know if you want to cover that.
Let's see here. We are so close to the end. Let me just go through the last couple of slides here, and then we'll hit all the questions in one fell swoop here.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so what do we do now? Okay, so this is, a curveball for you and your partners. We realize because it was a curveball for us. So again, we worked through with DOL and the evaluator to get, something that we thought would be livable for everybody. And so this is kind of the game plan at this point. So you all have to determine your willingness to, adapt to this and work with your partners. And do you all have the capacity to, work the program in the model that we've laid out here? So you need to get with all your partners and say, okay, yeah, that's close enough to what we've already been talking about, that, that's really just kind of a minor hiccup. Or if that's wildly different from what you've been having a conversation about, you need to have that conversation as well. Like, can we all adapt and do an application in time and work with everyone to make it happen? So that's on you folks to figure that out and let us know. Again, the new due date is at the last Friday in March, 5 p.m. And at the state level, we'll be working with the partners. The partners will be working together to develop those competency templates. And we'll also be developing those procedures with the state evaluator on intake and random assignment, and also on what the ratio is going to be. I see that's one of the questions. So the evaluation criteria that are listed in the clarification include all the criteria that were in the original RFA, but we also want to make sure that you understand this new service model, so you need to speak to, in your narrative and in how you describe what you're going to do, demonstrate an understanding of the new process, and then also an understanding of those three key phases or processes, parts of the process that we've laid out in the clarification. And also the key is, what is your level of employer involvement? Without employer involvement, this is just not going to work. So, we're doing everything we can at the state level to help make that happen. You folks at the regional level need to do everything to make that happen. Going through the process, we're, like I've spoken to already, we'll do everything both from the ICCB side, from the DCO side, to assist with that. But at the end of the day, if employers are not at the table and not engaged going through the process, it will crumble under its own weight. It'll just be us doing the same old thing of saying, well, here's what we think they need, and hope for the best. And that's just not what we're trying to get done in this initiative. And then it's also, the quality of your description of how you're going to implement the whole thing on that workflow side will be looked at as well. So that's what we'll be looking for in the applications. So we'll start just at the top here on the questions in the chat room, and then if anyone has any other questions, we'll be happy to take those as well. So the first question is from Michael Sloan. On Michael Sloan's questions, that is a valid, a viable way to do it. RFPs for screening and getting folks through, and then once you kind of know what the rate would be, just add individuals as they come along. Can you also require a lift test? A lift test, I don't think you can do to allow people into the training, because there are so many different jobs in manufacturing that I don't think you can require that to let folks in. However, I don't think that there would be a problem with having people take a lift test to see what their capacity is. Then you can determine what their best fit is. So when you work with the employers, you know what the requirements are, and then you can steer those folks away from something that they don't have a demonstrated capacity to do.
Yeah, this is Levon. Follow up on that. Yesterday I was in a meeting and UPS was there, and one of the things that they brought up was the need for lift tests, which I think Mike has a good way to handle that, because they said it's one thing for someone to say, oh yeah, I can lift 70 pounds. It's another thing to go in and have to lift 70 pounds 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. So to know what an employer asks for and then to match a person who meets that is yeah.
Right. Okay, so hopefully we address that.
So there's employer backup.
Yeah, and so, that can be part of their plan. Do we know the ratio of treatment to control group for random assignment? We do not at this point. We think it's probably going to be in the 1 to 3 range, maybe a little more stringent, probably no looser than that.
In one of the projects, this is Jennifer Foster from ICCB, one of the projects that we're working on, Mike is correct, that could be a 1 to 3 ratio. It just depends on the evaluators and what they set in motion. So that ratio could be higher than the number of individuals or clients that you serve throughout the project, just to make sure that you have a good random sampling of the individuals that are served.
Yeah, I would, based on what I know to this point, I would guess that 1 to 2 would be as strict as it's going to get. Mm-hmm. But if we can make it looser than that and give us a little more flexibility, we're going to try to make that happen. But in the 1 to 2, 1 to 3 range is probably where we're looking. Okay, so do students have to pass the MSSC level 1 exam and earn a credential, or just go through the curriculum? Preferably they would pass it. It's applied reading. If they can't pass it, if they can't pass that, they're going to have issues going forward. So I'd say if they can't pass it, that's a red flag, and we might want to look at, because that's a competency that we're looking for, right? So, if they can't pass it, they're not demonstrating one of the core competencies, because they're going to have to know that eventually and get it there. So since that's so simple and so straightforward, I would recommend you try to get them to that level before moving them on. Okay. My chat window got small, so I lost some of the questions here.
Pam Ferlin had a question.
There we go. Okay. Respond to an RFP to provide training. Okay. Well, to address Pam's question, that goes back to the procurement issue on, partners versus vendors. So again, if there are other folks in your region that can provide that service, doesn't mean the community college can't provide it also, but you need to go through a procurement process so that you get, reasonable training rates, and everybody understands what it is they need to provide. Okay, so that doesn't mean that doesn't exclude the colleges, but you do have to follow the procurement process. So if we need to provide additional clarification on that, we can get our procurement folks involved and give you more specific guidance on that. But the idea is that you've got to think of partners again as if they weren't at the table, would the project not happen? So if you don't have other training providers that are in the region that could bid on an RFP, and the community college as a partner has been involved in the process, then they're a partner. If they don't do it, there's no one else there that can do it. So you just have to look at your own situation. I know John Barr was on the call earlier. John, if you have any comments on that, you could let us know in the chat window, and we can let you speak to that as well. Otherwise, we'll try to provide some clarity to that, following the webinar. And also, we have another webinar on Monday, so we'll try to have a better answer for you by that time. Okay, so Michael Sloan has another question. During the bridge program, we'd like to get participants' businesses. We'd like to get
during the bridge. Can they pay them for attending the bridge, in other words? Give them a stipend and treat it like a business?
That's a question that's not come up. You're talking like an incentive.
We do that in the HCCTP program.
Right,
They get an hourly stipend.
Okay. That is a question that has not come up so far. We will have to check with our folks to see if that would be considered an allowable cost or not. That's a good question.
What, Gary?
Okay. Why the Joint Committee screen seems like a quite onerous step since will be one of the biggest challenges. Well, we respectfully disagree with that. Part of making sure this works is that people that have manufacturing experience, the manufacturing trainers and educators, and the employers themselves are looking at the folks to make sure that what they say they have really is what they have. I go back to the example. Someone could have been a machinist for 30 years. He comes in and says, yeah, I've been a machinist for 3 decades. A case manager that doesn't understand the nuances of manufacturing will put down, okay, 30 years of machining experience. Well, based on whatever they were doing at that particular employer, they may or may not have all the competencies they need, and we may or may not train them in the right things or send them to the right employer to get a job without having everybody at the table up front. So again, this is not the only way to do it, but a way to do it would be to use like a batch process. Collect the applications that come in that are viable, and then get that committee together, for a couple hours, go through the batch, and then decide, who meets and who doesn't. Okay.
You're only talking about the treatment group, right, at this point?
Well, no, this is everybody that comes in.
Oh, before, that's right, okay.
It's everybody that comes in. So, think of it as batch processing. So,
Okay.
You do a round, and then you get together the next week, and you do the next round. Whether you're in the same room or on a conference call, you all can work that out. But the idea is that everybody is at the table looking at folks before they get in, before they go into technical training, and again, before they go out for interviews. That is a fundamental key piece that has to happen, is that all those folks are engaged in every step of the process. And again, that may be a challenge, but that's part of the challenge of taking this on, that, we're not going to do business the way we've always done it. So, if that's too big of a burden, then that's too big of a burden. No one has to apply for this, but that's part of the deal. Okay, so next question. You have... I keep losing Pam's question.
Right way up at the top is your slide, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right
Here?
there. Thought.
This darn window.
Just sort of hidden.
Yeah, my scroll bar is hidden. Maybe I can arrow down. There we go. Okay. So, have you specifically defined which occupation you need to address? What about the role of project manager? Okay. Okay, there's a lot of questions in there, but that's cool. The occupations that, are in the original RFA, are kind of like your machining, tool and die, CNC, that sort of thing. But again, you've got to look regionally at what the LMI data is saying your openings are going to be. But the key piece is work directly with the employers to have them tell you what positions they need and when they'll be coming up. So you cast that net as wide as possible, and, again, through the help of the Manufacturing Learning Exchange, if you're having problems, making that contact with employers, that's the reality check. I mean, the LMI data is great, but it only takes you so far. The real reality check is what are the employers in your region telling you they need? So, having those folks at the table is critical to understand that. If they have needs that are beyond, the occupations that are in the RFA, that's fine. We're trying to meet employer need here and get people to work. So if it's a good paying manufacturing job, we're not limited to any particular occupation or skill set. We're trying to get folks into good jobs and meet the demand of employers. So as long as we're doing that, we're happy. The role of project manager.
Another question there.
The role of project manager?
That's the second one.
Yeah. Yeah, so she has 3 questions in this first part here.
Okay.
So, the role of project manager, is to keep everyone engaged. Project manager could help facilitate those screenings of employers, setting up the meetings and getting folks together. If you're having any issues with the employers, helping facilitate, getting over that hurdle. Basically the project manager, is to help make all this happen, for all of the partners. Project manager works for all of the partners, so we want that person to just help you overcome those obstacles, and then also be the point person for the state partners to speak to. My role as the manager of the regional partnerships is to keep track of what all of you are doing, and provide whatever assistance that or needs that come up as issues come up. So, rather than everybody, inundating each other with phone calls, if you can work out the issue and report it to the project manager, that can be your point person to work with those of us at the state level. And then, we'll be coming out and doing visits as well, so we're going to have that opportunity for interaction. But that project manager, you just think of that as your ombudsman or as your go-to person for dealing with the issues that come up. Okay. What if employers do not hire individuals without the GED? That is very much their right. You cannot tell an employer they have to hire anybody. So that is why, we want the folks that don't have that GED or diploma to work on it as part of this. Yeah. And
let it be a goal that as a part of putting together their individual plan, that it is a part of their goal to get that GED. And it goes with one of the questions that Amanda was asking, what happens if clients refuse to take the GED aspect of the process? I think that up front it has to be explained to them that as a part of their process and as a part of their goal, it is to get that GED moving in. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it would be a hard sell to tell them that without a GED, even if they have technical skills, that's still, very much a requirement at many employers. So that they are setting themselves, they are putting a hurdle in front of themselves that they don't have to. So that they can take care of it very quickly while they're doing all this other stuff. And, it just makes sense to take care of it now, and you never have to worry about it again. So, and you may want to remind them that, things with this employer may not work out, and they may be looking for another job at some point in their life. So having that GED and taking care of it now, is nothing but a positive, but not having it is not a smart play, definitely.
If somebody refuses it, they're probably just not a good fit for the program.
No. Yeah.
Let me get rid of that. Okay, let me catch my breath after that marathon question from Pam.
And we just addressed that.
Okay, we just addressed that.
Well.
Each career path. Michael, I believe it would be based on the entire group.
Yeah. I think that's the understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how they could do it at any level more specific than that, but again, we will be working on that with the evaluator very shortly. We're very close to getting that entity on board and starting to work. So, that will be part of that process. But, in every conversation we've had, it's been applied at the whole group. RFP can be worded to allow that's the whole key. Yeah. Acceleration and open exit are two key pieces of this. So anything that is done at the regional level needs to incorporate these two elements. If you don't incorporate these two elements and don't plan to incorporate these two elements, don't apply. Because, you've missed the whole point. Okay, Sue, we have been working with our employers already. They want entry level to complete before going into specific track. Okay. Yes, you may do that. Yeah, again, we spoke to earlier, there were 4 MSSC modules. There's no reason you can't get people through all 4 of those as you go through. In fact, that's very desirable. Certainly not a requirement, but if you can make that happen, by all means, we encourage you to do that. And when you say you've been working with our employers, I don't know that every employer would need that, but definitely having all 4 modules is an advantage. So we would encourage you to try to find a way to do that. Yeah, that's a very good question. And then, couldn't the project manager perform the evaluating systems experience rather than yeah. Kathy, that's a good point. We understand, and we've already had that conversation with IMA at the state level. Smaller employers are not going to be part of that. The way we envision it working is, a larger employer that can send a person over and be part of the process from beginning in is probably the way that it would need to work. We understand small employers don't have the capacity to take a lot of time away from their work. But again, the project manager, the intent there, that person is going to have a manufacturing background, but again, we want to make sure that the folks that we let in and do tire kicking on have that, essentially are vetted by your regional employers, so that when you send them out for interviews, you can say, hey, I was vetted by a local employer, working in concert with everybody else, at the beginning, all throughout the process, and again at the end before I came here. So again, that's an advantage both to employer to know that, one of my local or regional peers has said this person's a good fit and has made it through, and then also for the person going on the interview to be able to say that. So I think that's a little bit outside the role of the project manager to take the role of the manufacturer at that table, but certainly the project manager could participate in the process. I see no harm in that at all, but not replacing the manufacturer. Okay, Michael Sloan asks, we were planning on employer groups with an appropriate pathway and credential each pathway. Yeah, again, it's a pull model, right? So your employer groups, if they help you to find what the need is and what model works in your region, by all means, that needs to be part of the process. So, you have flexibility, to structure it so that it is most likely to succeed in your region, okay? So if that's the way that works in your region and provides for the acceleration in time to earnings and provides for open exit to also accelerate, that's up to you folks at the regional level to work out to make sure it's most advantageous to everybody in the process.
Sue's and Mike's both kind of go together.
Credit doesn't have to. Okay. One thing to speak to with your employers is that because we're trying something innovative here, the college credit, may or may not be on the table in your region depending on what your community colleges
in that time frame.
Can come up with in the time frame that we're allowed. But certainly that is a long-term goal that, folks that are doing this sort of thing would earn college credit. So, again, that's kind of up on the capacity of your region to figure out a way to make that happen. And again, if you guys can figure out a way to make that happen, we certainly encourage that. We don't want to tell anybody that don't try to focus on that if you can get that done quickly and get folks in training at a quick level and a quick pace. But we can't wait a year.
To go through the curriculum committee?
For it to go through the process, at least the process that exists now. Now, we have community college folks at the table here in front of me.
Yeah.
If at the state level...
They could be innovative within their internal system at the college to move it forward.
Right. So let me clarify that. So, Levon, are you suggesting that colleges in a region could offer credit under their own auspices?
No, I'm saying what they could do is maybe talk within their own institutions about innovative ways to move through the curriculum committees at their institutions more quickly. That sort of thing. That would be an innovation, for example, if they wanted to move to credit.
How often do those committees meet?
It depends on the college.
It depends on the college.
Yeah.
But I would say to both Sue and Mike, those two questions we'll take back to the ICCB, and as you're going a part of the process, we'll help to clarify what we can do at the state level in order to help that, to facilitate that happening.
To Mike's point, they want transcripted credit and not proficiency credit. Okay.
Same thing.
Well, yeah, and again, if that's what an employer says, that's our litmus test, that's their litmus test. I guess I would submit, though, that that's not every employer's litmus test. And if you can show them, look, you have a need to hire somebody right now, right? And I've got somebody that has NIMS credentials, has MSSC credentials, and has demonstrated competency to do the job that you need filled. Is college credit really that big of a deal? If I can send you a couple folks to interview and get the job. And hopefully, again, along the way, we've been building in internship, we've been building in work experience, building in OJT, so that employers looking at that person and saying, okay, they may not have college credit, but they can sure as heck do the job.
I would also say that, from a community college standpoint, we would love to see our students get credit. And it's another sort of research project for us to kind of see if through this project that can happen in terms of this accelerated model. So we will definitely want to take a look at how this can happen and how we can change that from a non-credit to a credit so that there is some transcripted credits that are awarded as a part of the process. But those are things that we'll have to research and evaluate to see if that can happen.
Okay, so then looking at Amanda's question now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, possibly, but, you'll have dislocated workers that do have have some manufacturing background. And also, it's also important to know that maybe they don't have manufacturing background, but they may have skill sets or work experience that is applicable to manufacturing. Say you've been a draftsman or a bank teller. Customer service rep. If you have math skill sets in your employment background, those are applicable to manufacturing. So, it's important to have, everyone looking at those people to say, okay, where are they at and are they a good fit? So, I mean, we can talk offline if you like, but, that's an element that we have spoke to DOL and the evaluator about, that we're going to have, everybody looking at those folks. So if that's a major concern, we'll have to get together and find a way to work through that. Since the current time is so short,
Yeah, we'll
Okay, the questions, Jennifer.
Yeah, Michael's point is right. I mean, at some point, we have to make sure that everybody completes the training in time to let the evaluators do their work on the inside of the grant period. So you're right. At some point, we'll have to look and see, where a person's starting point is.
Yeah.
And what they need, and if they need lots of remedial work, take that into consideration.
I think early on, Mike, I talked about the possibility of, while they're going through the bridge programs that are going to be offering those basic skills, they can also, an individual can also do another class in terms of a GED specific class to kind of help to accelerate the process for them. So that's also a part of that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I got to arrow down a little more.
Can I just say something to Michael's
Sure.
point? Michael's point, students want credit, so they have, I think that is why this being regional is so important. Some of you are coming from areas and you're working with employers and, clients that have been through so much upheaval. So I think you're going to see where that could actually be the case, Mike, where the credit is more important. But the thing is, are you going to be able to do it within this format in time? But other places, it's not going to be an issue. So I think it's going to have to be a regional decision. That's why it's regional.
Right. And another thing, Mike, to remember is that there's college credit, but probably what they may not realize is that through this program, they're also going to get the stackable credentials that are industry recognized. And those are also transferable and have mobility. So just remind them of that we may not be able to give you college credit, but you do have this nationally recognized certificate that you can go to any manufacturer across the country, and this will be meaningful to them.
So Mike means transfer credit. That would be a question I have. He's talking about, let's see, our model is to hold
mobility
up. Okay.
During economic shift.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So not just 1.6. Okay.
Right. So,
Just trying to, yeah.
Totally understand that, they would want that, and there's actually good for them. I mean, they're thinking ahead about their future.
Yeah.
So, if they're thinking about that, it's a sign you've got a bright one, at least on some level there. But just remind them that, they do get the other credentials that will have value for them. These class size programs have to be on the state's approved training list. That's my understanding that we don't have to worry about that. I'll verify that. We may have new training programs that are developed, to meet the needs of the WIF. So as long as you're training toward a credential and training to provide, real workplace manufacturing skills, you should be fine. So let me double check that, and we will address that in the webinar. I'm going to make sure that we get an answer for that one for sure. Okay, I'm reading through the question from the guest. If we put together
Yeah.
so it follows the semester. It's not to say that semester coursework is not allowable. The problem is the timing of it is, by definition, on the semester. And, it's not especially innovative. So what we're trying to do under this is evaluate, can we do this quicker than we do regularly? And can we demonstrate it statistically that we have better outcomes for people by doing it this innovative way? So sending someone to do it the way you always do it doesn't help the evaluation, because it's not really participating in the open exit innovation piece. Now that's not to say, just kind of spitballing here, that if you had a class that was ready to go that coincidentally aligned with employer need, and you were willing to let folks open exit out of that class when they demonstrated competencies and not wait till the end of the semester, then we could have a conversation about that. Because that is engaging in the open exit innovation piece, and it is also leveraging a class that you already had lined up and helps that person meet the need. But if you were thinking, no, this is going to be a standard semester class, they come in when the semester starts, they leave when the semester is over, then that's not innovation. But again, if it's coincidental that the timing is right and you're willing to do the open exit piece, we can have a conversation about that. That'll be the, can agencies choose to administer NIMS instead of MSSC? Not as part of the piece under that first yellow box where everyone comes in and gets their personalized plan. Everyone gets MSSC Module 1, which is the Introduction to Manufacturing and Safety. That is a requirement. Beyond that, it's up to you what you want to, if you want to go on to the rest of the MSSC modules. And again, NIMS should be incorporated in what you're doing as well, because again, that is a recognized credential. And if your local employers like that one better, that's great, but everyone still has to get that first MSSC module. And I would strongly encourage you to get them all four, because that person may not live in your region forever. So if they can take that to another region or another part of the country, that is going to help them out. And then we can do non-credit, credit. Oh.
Yeah.
So again, you guys can, at the community college board,
can do it, but how they report it.
Yeah, okay. We have a lull. Any other questions? Okay. Yvonne has a question.
I have a question. Go back, as we're talking about outcomes and everything, we talked about National Skills Readiness Certificate.
Mm-hmm.
And then that requires work keys. So work keys is definitely something they could choose.
Yes.
To use, because we put that as one of our assessments and our evaluations, yeah. So I guess then the question becomes, why can't they use them work keys at some point in evaluation of the client as far, because many manufacturing jobs are already online as certified for work keys. They already have the levels that they need, so it would seem that would be a good...
I think what we said,
yeah.
we were going to look at the assessment and then put those out at
right,
the state level, develop.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying they can use the work keys to verify with employers that's already done. That job matching piece is done in a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
So they
right. My anticipation, my expectation is that work keys will be one of the tools that meets the standards that are set.
Okay.
So, yeah, we definitely want to allow folks to use the tools that they are familiar with, and especially that the manufacturers recognize as having value.
Yeah.
So that should not be an issue.
Scroll down, that one at the bottom is a new question.
Okay. So Mike, we just addressed your question.
But I think you just put another one.
Once the once the cohort is selected.
Oh, we got a few more down there.
I think that's more common in how they can do that.
And add in, okay. So again, apparently Michael Sloan is thinking through a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
So,
And we have that written down, Mike, so we can take it back and talk about it at the ICCB.
yeah. So I would encourage you all at ICCB, as these webinars bring up these, possible ways, let's get together and figure out, is one more desirable or many of them options, and then we can get guidance out to the folks on how to do that. Train to develop open entry. Funding for curricula development. Okay. That's a bit of a sticky one. Curricular development is typically, takes a long time. Okay. What we're going at here is taking the training that you develop as part of this, or already have developed, and then allowing folks to exit out as soon as they show the competencies. So if you can do curricula development between now and it's time to start enrolling people, by all means. I mean, if it can be done that quickly. But the goal here is to be innovative. So, and again, I'll turn to my ICCB colleagues on what latitude you folks have to do something outside the box. But again, the overall latitude we have is non-credit. So my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, colleagues, is that you have flexibility
Yes.
to be innovative here without worrying about the curricula development process.
Yes, within the institution, that's right.
Okay. So, to the extent...
And a lot of work's already been done
Right.
on manufacturing curriculum through our bridge program, so we can share that. I think Jennifer said it's going to be shared, and so we don't need to reinvent the wheel everywhere.
As a part of the process, we are going to share some curriculum that has been developed throughout the state, and then that curriculum can be adapted for your local or regional needs. So,
For the bridge component.
Right.
so if that's the case, or
Yeah.
if you already have one of your own developed curriculum, this will just be something that will be available to you.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. So, let me modify my response to that then. Based on, there's stuff out there already. If you're using something already, by all means, feel to either adapt it if necessary, or if you don't need to adapt it and you can do the open exit thing on it, great. If you're starting at square one and not really sure about it at all, turn to your colleagues in the community college system and at the board to walk you through that curricula and let you know the process of making that happen. But we don't want to spend time starting from scratch on curricula development, or even tweaking existing curricula that's going to slow down getting people started in training. Let's grab the stuff that's off the shelf and make it happen. If it's not perfect, we can work on it later when we're dealing with people that are not part of the study. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, assisting the team in assigning is fine.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, all you need there is just to determine, what are the competencies that the person will need, and then once they show those competencies, they've met the requirements of the course and can move on. And I don't know that we did talk about this earlier, but I'll reinforce it now. We will be working with the employer side, the manufacturing folks, to give you all checklists so that you will know what the competencies are for key occupational titles.
And I think that on Sue, your question was about adapting it to open applications are in and they are selected. We're looking at how we can provide some technical assistance to help you to adapt a curriculum to an open entry, open exit type of a format.
Okay, I'm seeing some questions on the left side here. Is the cost for training of instructors for the MSSC allowable? I would think...
That's professional development.
Yeah, I believe it would be. I mean, if you're getting, if what you're doing, I mean, and how you describe that, you are building capacity in your region to run the model. So to me, that's an allowable and expense. Let me confirm that with our fiscal folks just to make sure that they are comfortable with that as well. But to me, that's a reasonable and allowable or allocable expense of running the initiative. Are we okay in seeking funds for reimbursement? Yeah, I mean, OJT training is part of the deal. We're getting ready to issue, new policy that allows higher wage reimbursement, similar to that used under the OJT NEG, okay, for those of you that participated in that. The goal is to have that on the street in time for you to use it under this initiative. But until that's issued, policy says the reimbursement rate is 50%. So, you all should be, you will get notified, just as a matter of course when new policy comes out. So be looking for that, and we'll be checking with policy unit to see, where that's at. So, but again, 50% for now under policy, but we hope to get to that NEG level in time for you to use it for this. How soon can applicants sit down with the evaluator? It will not be before March 29th, probably. But if we can make it before March 29th, we will. We're at the final stages of the RFP process, but it will take a while to get a contract in place. So I do not predict that it will be before March 29th. But to answer your question specifically, I mean, as specifically as I can, as soon as possible. I mean, we will be working with them, to get them up to speed on the initiative and developing that plan and developing that intake process. And then, we'll be getting with you all just as soon as possible. I mean, we are going to give them a very aggressive time frame to get up to speed because we are still shooting for grant activity to start June 1. So, we are going to shorten some time that the evaluator initially would have had to get up to speed. And, we're going to try to save some time on the front end, but we're still shooting to have grants to you and a start date of June 1. Whether we can pull that off, I don't know, but that's still what we're shooting for. Is 20% leverage still required? Yes, it is. In answering Pam's question, leverage is, a required piece of it. That was a piece of the model from DOL that was required in the initial RFP or RFA. So, yeah, still required. Again, leveraged resources, not necessarily a match, could be in-kind resources, but you have to give us the value of that on your application. Sorry, I can't get you out of that. But again, for the people that go in the control group that are part of this initiative that you're paying for their services out of local WIF funds or other local funds, that counts toward the leveraged resource. So it should not be hard to meet your 20%. And the idea behind that is those people that are in a control group, you've got to serve them, right? So it's only fair to allow you to count that as a leveraged resource under the initiative. Okay, so Michael asked, does the public-private steering committee need to be formed prior to submission? Ideally, it would be great to know, who you have on there, but as long as you have someone on there, by the time you start interviewing folks, that is the key. So if you can tell us, you're going to have X number of employers on it, or how you expect that to work. I know it might be difficult in the next 2 weeks to get somebody lined up. I will say, though, that if you have them lined up and you can identify names and employers that are going to participate, that's a better application than an application that says, well, we're going to do that, but we're going to figure it all out later.
Right. And rather than saying you'll figure it out later, say, here's who we intend to approach and who's we'd like to work with and stuff. I mean, give us some kind of idea of what direction you're headed in, at least, if you don't have them lined up now.
Oh, I see a thank you embedded in there. You're welcome.
Damn.
I assume that was on the leverage question, but we'll take that as a general thank you.
She's relieved.
It has. Yeah, that's fine, Mike. I mean, as much as you can tell us, the stronger that makes your application. Okay. Any other questions? Well, seeing none, we'll look here to close down the webinar again. We're going to do this again on Monday. So if you have colleagues, if you have employers that you think need to hear this information, if you have other regional partners, either community-based organizations, employers, community college, whoever, if there's somebody in your region that you feel would benefit from participating, please pass along the information to them, and then they can sign up, and hopefully we'll have as many people as possible hearing the message, and hopefully being armed as fully as possible to do your application. So. To see that this was helpful to folks. That was the intent. And again, this was, I can't finish this without saying this. This wasn't our idea, but this is the path that that we've been led down. So we appreciate your willingness to come along the path with us. Personally, I'm excited about this. I think that we have an opportunity here to do something that is really outside the box that we haven't had the flexibility to do before, and you guys still have some flexibility to do things the way that matters most for you in your region. So I'm excited about this, and we're looking forward to the applications coming in at the end of the month. So thank you again, and we will speak to anyone that's on here again on Monday. Take care, everyone.